Hey guys, guess what? The Starlink Portability feature is nothing new. As a matter of fact, we've been using it for the past 2 months while living and traveling in our RV. Don't believe me? Check out the link above from our last video called Traveling with Starlink, or just hang here with me and I'll explain. In today's video, we're going to review our 2-month experience with Starlink Portable, including some speed tests, show you how we can use our cell phones over Starlink even when there is no cell service whatsoever, like out here, and talk about whether or not Starlink Portable is really worth it, as it does cost an extra $25 per month and there are some limitations. All right guys, well, I decided to take a ride up here into the mountains and check out the view behind me. It is pretty sweet. Pretty high up here in the mountains right now, and I rode up here on my new electric Chiron dirt bike. Fun to ride, a real blast to ride actually. So glad I came up here. It's actually not as windy as it is down in the valley either. All right, so it was about 3 months ago, there were some folks out there who were traveling in their RVs who suddenly became aware that they had access to Starlink services without having to move their home service address. They also noticed in their Starlink debug data that there was a new feature that was enabled called roaming. If you haven't figured it out yet, the roaming feature is what is now officially named Starlink Portability. Slowly, the news about the roaming feature had spread around the internet, and more people started seeing that they had this ability. So this really got us excited. We checked our account daily in anticipation, and finally on March 4th, we were granted access to roaming. Since then, we've been to 7 different locations and haven't had to change our service address once. It's been so simple and easy to set up our dish in each location. We simply place it in our roof mount that we installed on top of our RV and plug it in. And service has been excellent in each location. No buffering when streaming, really fast speeds, both download and upload. Here, let me show you. Check out these results of the speed tests. Well, it's no surprise that there are already a lot of people complaining about having to pay an extra $25 per month for the portability feature. And to be honest, when I first heard that they were going to start charging for this feature, I really also was kind of bummed. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense from a business perspective from Starlink. But you know, the one thing it made me do was it made me take a look at our cell phone bills and realize that we could easily reduce some costs. And now that we have Starlink, we no longer need the 30 gigabyte hotspot that we have, and removing this will save us $20 every month. We're also going to get rid of one of our Verizon lines that costs us $60 a month and move that over to the Visible phone service. Visible is only going to cost us $25 per month when we join our friends on their Party Pay account. So that's a $35 savings right there as well. And that also uses the Verizon 5G and 4G network. If you're not familiar with Visible, check it out. It works well enough, you know, just for, I would say, phone services. We used to use it as a hotspot, but it didn't work so great for that. But for just a regular cell phone, it works pretty good. And lastly, per Starlink, you can turn the portability feature on and off at will. So you can do that right through your service account. And when we head down to the Gulf Coast of Texas in the winter for 3 months, we're going to use that as our home base address, and we'll be able to turn off the portability feature and save ourselves another $75. So really, because Starlink is imposing this extra $25 fee, it made us look at our other spending, and we're actually going to net a $30 savings when it's all said and done. Another huge benefit to having the portability feature is that we never have to worry again about having cell service when we travel. We love to park our camper in remote locations far away from the city, and in the past it really was a struggle to find an area that had decent cell service. Yeah, I know we're supposed to be going out to get away from it all and not worrying about having cell service, but being that we live full-time in our RV, we do prefer to stay connected. And it's hard to upload YouTube videos without a connection, right? Not only that, but if there's an emergency, we need to obviously be able to get some help. And we use the internet for researching our next destination as well, or to find things to see in the surrounding areas. And finally, we certainly can't miss this week's episode of Yellowstone. Okay, all that being said, per Starlink's portability policies, there will be some limitations. So let's talk about them. The first section is called Best Effort Service. What does that mean? Well, per Starlink, portability service is provided on a best effort basis. Stated speeds and uninterrupted use of services are not guaranteed. Starlink prioritizes network resources for users at their registered service address. When you bring your Starlink to a new location, this prioritization may result in degraded service, particularly at times of peak usage or network congestion. Well, so far we haven't seen much in the way of downgraded service. However, we typically don't camp in very highly populated areas, so that may be the difference. Now, something interesting I did find was whenever I actually signed up for portability, probably 3-4 days ago, I noticed that our speed test jumped. So we were getting anywhere from 100 to 150 megabits per second download in these areas that we're at right now, and they jumped up over 200 as soon as I signed up for portability. So I'm really kind of hoping that maybe they rewarded us for signing up. The next section in Starlink's policy is international travel. Here they state, Starlink can only be used within the same continent as the registered service address. If you use Starlink in a foreign country for more than 2 months, you will be required to move your registered service address to your new location or purchase an additional Starlink to maintain service. That's kind of interesting. So it sounds like you may be able to take your dish across the border of maybe Mexico or Canada if you're in the US, and you'll be able to use it for a couple months, but then I guess you have to move your registered service address after that time period. The next section talks about no in-motion use. We do not support Starlink use in motion at this time. Using the Starlink kit in motion will void the limited warranty of your kit. While our teams are actively working to make it possible to use Starlink on moving vehicles, example automobiles, RVs, boats, Starlink is not yet configured to be safely used in this way. Now, I do know there are quite a few people out there who have actually mounted Dishy on their vehicles and drive around with it. The one guy named Marcus Tuck, who travels in an overland vehicle, has actually disabled the motors and mounted it in his spare tire up on top of his roof. And he said he gets great service. I know he's even been down to Mexico, and he's still getting great service down there. So it'll be interesting to see if Starlink actually enforces this and some of these other policies. One last really big benefit is that even when there is absolutely no cell signal, we can use our cell phones to make calls, send text messages, browse the internet, all as you normally would, except it's done via the Starlink Wi-Fi network. There's a feature called Wi-Fi calling that can be enabled on your iPhone or Android, and that will connect to your home network Wi-Fi. It lets you make phone calls just as if you were on regular cellular service. So out here in the middle of nowhere with no cell service whatsoever, we've been able to make phone calls with no issues and actually really great clarity. And we also can use all of our other standard functions as normal. To enable this feature on iPhone, go to Settings and then Phone, Wi-Fi calling, and then turn on Wi-Fi calling on the iPhone. This is going to be similar for the Android phone as well. Well, so far for us, Starlink has been great. I mean, we absolutely love it. I know there have been some people online who have been traveling like out in the East Coast or maybe even the West Coast out in Oregon, where they're having issues with trees. Like here in Nevada, where we're at right now, the trees are all pretty short. They're not very thick canopies either. Like on the West Coast or the East Coast, you're gonna find a lot of really thick canopy out there, and that probably will be an issue for your dish. But out here when we're traveling, California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, haven't had any issue yet. Now, the one thing we did do, I bought a 150-foot extension cord for our Starlink dish, so that way we could place it very far off and away, hopefully get out to an open area and get a signal, clear signal, in case we run into an issue like that. But if you get into areas on the East Coast or West Coast with really thick tree canopies, that may not work out in any condition. All right, guys, well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell below. That way you'll be notified each time we post an update on how well our Starlink portability feature is working for us. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.